Okay, in this video we're going to learn about solving radical equations using algebraic methods. So in the Activate Your Prior Knowledge, you looked at solving them graphically, which we did earlier in the year. So you kind of already have an idea of what these answers are. So remember, you're solving for x, so like on this first one, the x is -1. This one, the x is 8. The middle one here, those two graphs are not crossing, so that's why that one is no solution. So in this case, just FYI, x is -1, and over here x is 8, to clarify that. So we're going to take those same problems and look at how you solve them algebraically. So step one, when you're solving a radical equation, and that's things with like square roots, cube roots, fourth roots, anything of that nature. Step one is to get the radical by itself. So you want to isolate the radical symbol. So in this very first example, the square root of x plus 5 is my radical. So that means if I want to get that by itself, I have to move that +1 to the other side. So you have to think about how would you do that with inverse operations. So in this case, we'll subtract 1. So I get the square root of x plus 5 equals 2. Now, second step, once you isolate the radical, then you want to undo the radical or do the inverse operation of that. So in this case, since it's a square root, the opposite of a square root is squaring it. So you want to take the power that will undo the root. That will be its inverse operation. So in this case, squares and square roots will undo each other, so I can cross those out, and I can bring down my x plus 5. Over on the other side, 2 squared is 4, and if I subtract that 5 over, I'm left with x equals -1, which, if we check out up here, that's what graphically it was showing, was that, hey, the x value there, it's at -1. That's what the solution would be. Now, when we do these radical equations, you're going to find sometimes you're going to get solutions that don't work. So we do want to make sure we double check our answers. So in this case here, we are going to substitute our solution back in for x, and we want to make sure that that answer comes out to be 3. So the square root of -1 plus 5 is the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. Hey, look at that. 2 plus 1 is 3. That's a good thing. That means x equals -1 is a good answer. Okay? A couple things in this middle one. We knew it was no solution because nothing is intersecting. Algebraically, you know you're not going to have a solution because you can't square root a number and get a negative answer. Okay? So there's no number that you're going to be able to put in there and square root and get -3. You can, when we square root negative numbers, remember those come out imaginary. Square rooting a positive number is going to come out positive. So there's nothing that you can possibly do that's going to square root and give you -3. So that's why that one is a no solution, and it shows up on the graph. Okay, the third one over here, we have a cube root of x plus 2 equals 4. So again, let's work through algebraically. First step, isolate the radical. So we want to get the cube root of x the cube root of x by itself. So that means that plus 2, we are going to subtract that to the other side. And then we have to do the opposite of that root. So since this is a cube root, we want to do a third power. So cubes and cube roots will undo each other. Over here, 2 to the third is 8. And let's just double check our answer. So cube root of 8 is 2. 2 plus 2, look at that, is 4. This is a great answer. You're going to find out that a lot of times odd roots you're fine, because odd roots you can have positive or negative answers. It's really the even root ones, like square root, fourth root, that you really have to be careful with, because you can't square root and get a negative answer. Okay, so let's recap. Number 1, isolate the radical. Step 2, undo the root. So you want to use that power that goes with the root. And then step 3 would be to solve. And step 4, always check. Okay, so if I go a little too fast, you can hit pause on your computer screen there and jot those down. But that'd give you a good plan for when you're solving radical equations.